To get to Odysseyware, you are going to go through ClassLink. So what you're going to do is click the icon that says Odysseyware. If you cannot find it, simply go to the little plus button on the top of ClassLink and you can search for it. And when you type it in, it will pop up and then you would just click Add. Once you locate it on ClassLink, we're just going to go ahead and click. And then the first time you load it, it might require a sign-in, but after that, you should not have to do it again. And this is what your home screen is going to look like on Odysseyware. You can see here, I don't have any recent actions or assignment alerts. However, if you are the teacher of record on a class, you will have assignment alerts that pop up here as far as if students needed something graded or if something is blocked. And we will get into that as we proceed in this video. If we hop on over to the Assignment Alerts tab next to the Home tab, we're going to get a look at what you might see on your home screen. So as you can see, there is no progress for today. However, let's go to the past 2 days. And instead of my students, I'm just going to go to all students. Again, you will not have to do this in your case. However, this is what your view will look like. You can see here what the student got, if they need something unblocked, and just get a general kind of overview of what's going on and what students may need some additional help. We're going to move from assignment alerts to the students tab. So when I click on students, now I get a list of all the students. By default, it ends up in this registration window, and you're going to see here that it's all students. But what we want to focus on right now is the groups tab. So I'm going to go ahead and click on groups. And now I can go ahead and create a new group. Now the purpose of a group is to focus on few or multiple students and be able to print reports, which we will go over later on in this video, in a quick manner. So this will save you time in the long run. So we're going to do an example group. I'm going to search for a student. All right. Now I simply click this little plus button. Now they are in that group. As you can see, Chloe Testfam appears in the bottom. Maybe I want to add Drew Venny as well. So he will also appear in the bottom. Now I can go ahead when I'm satisfied with my group and hit save. I'm going to go ahead and go to a group that I created. So here you can see my group. And now I can go through and you can always add or remove students to your group. And then we're going to take a look at when this group comes in handy. So what's the point of making a group? Well, we want to go to reports now. Now we're going to hop over to where it says reports. So the homepage of the reports tab brings us to a dashboard. This dashboard may differ from what your view is compared to this. However, it is essentially showing the same information. The only difference is you can choose your name as the teacher, and then you can get a quick visual overview as far as the students in your class. However, the real value here is in the activity reports section. So when we click on activity reports, we get a few options here on the left-hand side. Now you can see here the group overview and group progress, and both of those can be valuable, and it helps when we create a group like we just did. So if we wanted to go to the group overview, we simply click on that. And now we look for the group that we created. I'm going to go ahead and select the group that I had previously created. Once you select that, you're going to click this Show and Refresh button. Now all the courses show up that the students are enrolled in. However, I'm just responsible for chemistry. So I click that, and then I can choose to put it in an Excel form or PDF. I'm going to go with PDF. And then this is the view that you'll get. The other valuable tab here is the Student Activity Daily Breakdown. I'm going to click on that. And just like the group one, we have to select our year. So 2019, 2020. And I'm going to go with this student. And then I just go to show and refresh. Again, when you click on the student or the group, you have to click on the show refresh button once you get to the enrollment section. Then I can go ahead and click on English 9, since this is not a real student. And you can see here, this will break down how often that student has been in Odysseyware, at what time, when they logged off, and how long they spent with their time on task. So that's a really valuable thing to be aware of. There are a few other reports that you can play around with, but it's essentially the same thing as far as setting it up. You pick the time frame, the users, and then you show the enrollment, and then you're able to, again, export it into Excel or into PDF. Now we are going to head over to the Gradebook tab. So open that blue bar, I select Gradebook. And this is really the best way to navigate through different students' gradebooks and assignments and take care of grading and monitoring your students that you're responsible for in Odysseyware. So in this student box, I'm going to go ahead and type in the name of the student. You can see it pops right up. Then you click search. As you can see, this student is enrolled in one course. And then you're going to hit this little plus button, and that will give you a breakdown of the units that make up that course. So this first unit is reading and writing. Now, the breakdown of a unit is this. You have a pretest, which the student will take, and if they score a 70% or higher, then it will skip the whole unit. Now, that percentage may vary depending on whatever norms are set, but generally speaking, that pretest is something that the student should take their time on, because even if they don't pass the pretest per se, if they do really well in one area, it might skip certain lessons in that unit. So they will not have to do every single lesson. Now, in this case, the student did not pass the pretest, so they start off with a lesson. So you can see here, this blue box with an L is lesson. For lessons and quizzes, students need to score a 70% or better to move on. Tests are 60%, but lessons and quizzes are 70% or better. So you can see here that this was done, it's graded, and the student got an 85%. You can see the next lesson was started, and there were 2 attempts on that lesson. However, it has not been completed. So if we click on a lesson, let's take a look at what it looks like from our view, from the teacher view. You can see that the lesson is broken down into different sections. If the student needs help and you are not quite sure about the answer, there is an answer key here where you can click show answer. So again, I would click show answer, and it's going to highlight the answer for that question. Now, to take a step back here, so we have show answer. The other button here is help. So if I click on help, that allows you to provide text feedback or support to a student for a specific question. So maybe I want to define what a mnemonic device is, and you could type that in here. Mnemonic device is blah, 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 and then you would hit send, and that will go to the student when they get to that question. So we saw help, I'm going to hide the answer there. Now here's the other options. If it's a question that maybe we don't feel is relevant to the curriculum, or the student has demonstrated that they have an understanding of that question, and they do not need to show further mastery, you can click the skip button. If you click skip, it'll gray out that question, and the student will not see it when they get to that question in the lesson. So again, I'm gonna go back to default, so it will not skip it. Up above that, we have the actual full lesson up here. So when we see the actions on the top, the skip button up here does a little bit more. It actually skips the entire lesson. So if I click skip here, it's going to skip this entire lesson. So make sure if you're hitting the skip button here that it is intentional and the student should not be completing this lesson. If for whatever reason you need to reset a lesson, you could do that by clicking the reset button. And then finally here, you can click new message. New message could be sent out to a group of students or to an individual student, one at a time. And then finally, we have the update score on the top. Here's where you can manually enter a score. So if there were adjustments that needed to be made that Odysseyware is not able to pick up or complete, you could go ahead and type in that score, and then you would just click update. And you see now the assignment score is a 72.5. Now, when we scroll through, since we did give the assignment a score, you'll see that all the questions that were wrong show up in red. So in this case, the student did not answer any of these questions, which is why they're all showing up in red. So if they maybe got 3 questions wrong, and we want to make sure they understand it, we could reassign a question. To reassign a question, you click this reassign button right here. Now, that wasn't highlighted before because there was no score on the assignment. So there was no right or wrong. Now that these have been marked wrong, we could reassign that question. And we can go ahead and go through and reassign the questions that they got wrong. So on a quiz where they might have failed, maybe you want to do this the first time. Instead of making them do the whole quiz over, you can reassign the questions that they got wrong. So we looked at the lesson questions, and we looked at the different tools that we have at our disposal as the teacher. Let's say you want to actually see what the student is seeing. So for this lesson, I want to know what they're looking at. So if I go to show lesson, up here on the top left, that gives me exactly what the student is seeing. So in this section, they are getting their answers from here. A nice feature worth noting in this lesson, works for both teachers and students, is the ability to tab notes. So you can see if you hover over this left margin, you get a little gray tab. You click on that and then you can add a note. So maybe I want to go down a little bit and I want to highlight that this is an important section to reference. And I can save that. And then the student will be able to see that note. This is also a way for students to go through, and they can type in their own notes throughout the document, and they can print them out and have them to reference for the quiz. To get back, we are going to go ahead and go to the top of the screen, and then we're just going to click on Go To. And from here, we're going to go to Gradebook. And this will bring us back to that student's course, back to where we were at. Now that we're here, we're going to take a look at the next type of assignment, which is a project. Projects vary based on the content area and the subject. However, here you can see one project. And if we click on Show Lesson, so it's going to give the instructions, and then the student is responsible, for completing that project based on the instructions. There is an answer key. Generally for projects, it is a little broad, but it touches on the key components that students should be addressing. When the students turn it in, it will show up as a 0 because the teacher has to manually grade it. So in this case, you would go and type in the points received, and then you would hit update, and that would update the student's project grade. The amount of projects per unit vary. There could be 0, there could be as many as 4. But projects will always show up when students begin a unit. The projects will always appear, and the students do not have to work on them necessarily in order with everything else. All right, moving along, we have the quiz. So here you can see that the quiz was taken 2 times, which is the maximum amount of times a student can take a quiz without passing. Then it's up to the teacher to unblock the quiz so that they can take it or attempt to take it again. So when I click on this quiz, you can see the red X, which means that they did not pass, right? We can see the questions that they got right, and we can see the many questions that they got wrong. So again, this is up to your discretion, but you can reassign the ones that the students got wrong. And then when the students log back in, they will be able to just answer those questions. Now, if it's the 4th or 5th attempt, maybe you're not just reassigning the wrong questions. Maybe then, you start sending a message and communicating with the student to see what exactly they need help with as to why it has taken, so many attempts to complete the quiz. Now, the student, if they get a passing score here, which would be a 70, for speed's sake, I'm just going to type in a 70 up on the top there. That is obviously not what you want to be doing in a live course. So now we have a 70, and you can see the check mark shows up. Now, a few other things worth noting here. These lessons. So this says not started. All that means is that the student did not start the lesson. If the student were to pass this word parts lesson, then this assignment would by default be changed to assigned, and it would show up in the student's dashboard, and they can begin working on it. If you assign multiple things at a time, that means all of this is going to show up in the student's dashboard, and it could be overwhelming. So make sure you're aware of what is assigned and where your students are at in their course. Finally, I'm going to go down here to the test, and the test is going to usually be blocked. The test is going to be blocked. So here, when the students get to it, you might get a message or an email saying, can you please unblock my test? To unblock, you go again to this column, and then you uncheck the box, and we can assign the test. And that will show up for the students. Once the student finishes Unit 1, then they will move on to Unit 2, and then there's a pretest, and you'll have to unblock that pretest and then assign that to the student, and then they can get started on that next unit. So students are going to use the same way to access Odysseyware as teachers, and that is through ClassLink. So if they click on the Odysseyware app in their ClassLink dashboard, it'll bring them to the ClassLink page. And then the student needs to be on the Learn tab to access the assignments. And the student view we're looking at here is the same student that we were looking at from the teacher view as far as assignments go. So you can see on the top here we have the Learn tab, and then we have the Message tab. So just as teachers can message students, it can go the opposite way. Students can message their teacher here. So you can see the 2 messages that I had sent this student show up here. And this is where the student can view and archive those messages. They could also compose a new message after selecting their teacher. They could type their subject and then the information that would be sent in that message, and they can go ahead and send that to that teacher. We're going to go ahead and hop back over to the Learn tab. And again, here we can see that this student has a lesson assigned to them, a quiz, a project, and then all the way down the line, there is another pretest that they'll have to take. And this is what it looks like when something is blocked. So you can see 3 of the 4 to do that the student have are unblocked. The 4th one is blocked. If we go into the lesson, we're going to take a look at what it looks like for the student. So as you can see, there are sections. So we have sections 1 through 5. Then we have questions. So the student is able to go back and forth between the questions and the section. So if the student, again, if they want to take a note of something, they can put right here, they can put a little blue note that this is a prefix. And then we can save that there. And then we can go to the question section, and we can find the assignments and the questions, that we have to answer. When we're all done, I can hit turn it in. And I'm just going to go with yes, please. So obviously that is not very good. However, this is what it looks like when the student turns it in. For a lesson, they will get a score as long as there's no manual grading required in the project or lesson. And then they can choose to go back to their assignments. So that's what I'm going to do here. And you can see we're going to look at a quiz next. So if we go into this quiz, this says you can only take 2 attempts before needing a teacher to unblock it. And again, when we start a quiz and a test, we need to finish it within the same session. You cannot sign out and resume later. So we want to work on our questions. And you can see here, the ones with arrows means that they are skipped. The ones that are grayed out means we've answered those and the teacher has not reassigned them. And then the questions that show up in bolded, right, in black bold font, those are the ones that we have to answer. So I can go ahead and answer this question. We'll go and find the other few ones. Okay, going to keep going here. And let's just say that. And group 1. When we're done, again, turn in. Yes, please. And then it tells the student what they got. So it got a 71.4%. So I can click on my assignments again. And now I can finish and go to the essay section. Next, we're going to take a look at the courses view for students. So if we click on this tab that says courses, the student will see all the courses they are currently enrolled in. So for this, it's English. It shows the current score. So the average of all the assignments so far is a 57%. It shows how many assignments are remaining. And it's showing at what pace the student is working at. So right now it's telling me that I am 13 assignments behind where I should be. And that is something that the students can always reference as far as how they're pacing between the start date and the end date is how that is calculated. So if I click on this, now it'll break down and give the student a view of each unit. So that way they can kind of get an outlook and an overview of what they've completed, what they need to redo, and what's upcoming. That way they can kind of pace on their own as well. They can manually go through here and see what they have to do. So this only has a pretest right now because we don't know what will be assigned until they get that score on their pretest, which will determine how many lessons they have to do, if in fact they have to do any. So that is the general overview of Odysseyware from the teacher and student perspective. If you need additional help, don't hesitate to reach out to your tech integrator.